morning, Commissioners. Patricia McPherson, Grassroots Coalition. Here's a quote from a study being done on the Everglades. Restoration needs to begin by determining how the hydrology has changed. Thus, plans to restore the Everglades are based on extensive modeling of the historical water flows. I'd like to remind you that within the DEIR for Ballona, there is no hydrology analysis of Ballona itself. And that is why the diversion of all of this fresh water is so very important and so very critical to what is going on with Ballona right now. And one needn't wait for a DEIR to bring back this water. In addition to having the DEIR rescinded, corrected, recirculated, and to have a freshwater alternative be included. I would like to also remind you that this is public trust land. The freshwater marsh system is public trust land. We own that land. And yet, Playa Vista, this is a flood control system. And but for that flood control system, they would not be able to sell tickets. They would not be able to sell more of their development sites out there. Now, the premise of this flood control system for Playa Vista was to provide a public benefit. What public benefit exists to the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve when you are taking the water that is within that freshwater marsh system and throwing it either into the sanitary sewer, which is what is happening, or out into the ocean? Since the last hearing, Ms. Brownsey had an ex parte that she shared with us in writing. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife stated that they agreed with the nonprofits that this is an issue of concern and that they would be dealing with, and that's questionable, whether it's Playa Vista or State Lands Commission or whoever. Have they? Well, I have a PRA in for their communications on that, and I haven't even had a response. It's past 10 days to even acknowledge my PRA. But the thing is Fish and Wildlife has been a part of the draining of these wetlands. We know that the drains have caused harm. This Coastal Commission made that assertion, and that's why those drains are now capped, and that's why that area is now ponding with rainwater. Well, since that ex parte, the rains occurred again. And again, the water was diverted out into the ocean. This should not be happening. This public trust land is not being managed on behalf of the public's trust. It's similar to the Mono Lake, where the water was being diverted. There was a lawsuit by Audubon, and the water was restored to Mono Lake. I also wanted to update you as to some of the issues that are going on right now. There was a letter that was CC'd that ended up in the Coastal Commission staff. I don't know that any of the commissioners are aware of this, and Grassroots will be responding to this letter and will provide it to all of you shortly. In that letter, Huffman, who is the president for Playa Vista, responds basically citing that it is legal for them to divert the water. Well, while those permits do say that they can, there is nothing in those permits that allow for harm to Ballona. And in the settlement agreement, and in the 2006 stipulation of that same settlement agreement, it specifically cites that Playa Vista will not harm Ballona wetlands. There is no reason for this water to be thrown away. None. As a matter of fact, in the EIR for Playa Vista, they are to bring those waters to the surface that are coming up, cleanse them, reuse them on site to recharge the aquifers. That will be in the letter response to Mr. Huffman. This actually was a letter that the Water Board, who we are working with on these issues, is concerned about this, gave a spreadsheet to Playa Vista saying, please answer these things. Playa Vista's letter went to Fish and Game as well. Fish and Game apparently CC'd it to Coastal Commission staff. And we got it through a Public Record Act request. Number one, that's part of the problem here, is the transparency going on with these communications. And what we are doing, as the little girl just said, I too am trying to put forth my best effort. And that best effort includes us doing Public Record Act requests, because that's the only way we find out what's going on. We don't have agencies that are communicating with us. We don't have staff lately communicating with us with regard to these issues, even from the Coastal Commission. And we would like to see that happen. Because this Huffman letter points out many things that include even the gas issues that you have been talked to from the Playa Vista developers and the consultants, and we've been shown that they have been proven wrong about their assessments on the gas issue. So when I send this to you, please look at it, because it will also address those gas issues, which we now have the petroleum engineer for the City of LA. We have attorneys from the City of LA who are looking at this. We have a councilman that has asked for funding from the governor for the CCST report to go ahead, which is the investigation of the Playa del Rey facility of SoCal Gas. We have big problems there, and none of this is addressed in the EIR that is currently out there. So please, we look forward to sending you this, and thank you very much.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Knight. I've been volunteering the last 26 years with the Sierra Club and the Biono Ecosystem Education Project to protect the Biono wetlands on the Los Angeles coast. The draft EIR restoration of Biono wetlands alternatives are essentially one alternative: to dig out Biono and create a saltwater bayment. The creation is based, we're very concerned about this, the creation is based upon faulty assessments and hearsay premises within the litigation by Friends of Biono Wetlands et al. And the California Coastal Commission. This lawsuit culminated with a settlement agreement in 1990 that permeates the entirety of the Coastal Development Permit 591463, into which the Army Corps Permit 9426EV provides a description of the freshwater marsh system. This settlement agreement was not based in any scientific findings, but instead a politically drawn-out layout of what would happen to Biono and who would control it. The public was not made aware of the settlement agreement and its wheeling and dealing of authority and outcomes. The public and key stakeholder groups, none of which were a party to the settlement agreement, and not having knowledge of the settlement agreement terms, continued to fight for the acquisition of the Biono wetlands. These key stakeholder groups and members of the public were successful in the acquisition of Biono. Parties to the settlement agreement have meanwhile aligned themselves wholly with the Playa Vista developers, following settlement agreement terms that included not attempting to garner any further land of Biono. Indeed, settlement agreement members worked to confuse the public on behalf of the Playa Vista developers and worked against any further land acquisition for Biono. The Playa Vista developers, due to oil field gas investigations by key stakeholder groups, namely the Sierra Club and Grassroots Coalition and key gas migration experts, became willing sellers after the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety disallowed any residential building to occur over the SoCal Gas underground gas storage operation. Hence, no residential building would be allowed west of Lincoln. Only in recent years have the key stakeholder groups and certain members of the public become aware of this settlement agreement and its rather devastating terms that should not be the controlling terms for the restoration of the Biono Wetlands Ecological Reserve. The public acquired Biono via its public trust bond dollars. The land is to be restored based upon the highest available protective status, that of an ecological reserve. So we want a alternative studied to have this land restored as a freshwater wetland that has been for 400 years. Not a single alternative was even studied in the environmental impact report to have it restored as a freshwater wetland, which is just ridiculous. That environmental impact report should not be allowed to proceed. Thank you very much.